Hi, Research 9. This is a video to help you make a scatterplot style graph, and that's for if your independent variable is a continuous variable. So I show general bar graphs because most of you, what you're changing in terms of the Stroop test are things that are not quantitative. But for some of you, it is. And so if you're doing something quantitative with your IV, then a nice way to visualize it, a way that I would prefer you to visualize it, is a scatterplot graph. And here's how to do it in Google Sheets. It's annoying. So let's take a look at what those data might look like. So here is my data. So I'm imagining that this time it's my, let's say it's my experiment is the effect of temperature on the Stroop effect. So I've got two participants at each level, 72 degrees, 75 degrees, and 80 degrees here. And each has done 3 trials. So I have 6 data points for every IV. So that IV level, that's good. And so, of course, the way I would organize it is the same way as I organized my bar graph information earlier. Exactly the same, right? These are just the Stroop effect in seconds for each. And then I've got the mean, 3 means and 3 standard deviations. Okay, so now if I were to set up a bar graph or scatterplot graph, I'm gonna do it the exact same way in Google Sheets, which is that both your X and Y axis are the same, are your IV. And then my DV is the corresponding number here, the corresponding mean. And so I'm gonna select this and insert a chart, and it's going to automatically make a very ugly column chart that I don't want at all. This is confusing and meaningless. Well, it's not meaningless, but it's mostly confusing and not helpful. So I'm going to, under setup, I'm going to select not line. I'm going to select a scatter here. And already this is looking much better. There's 3 dots, right? Down here, I'm gonna say, why don't we use row 31 as headers? That's the 70. That's the 72, 75, and 80 rows. I'm gonna say those are headers. Okay, and now you can see my scale actually makes sense. This is on my y-axis. That's the amount of Stroop effect, and then on my x-axis, that's the temperature of the room. My IV. I'm gonna get rid of the legend because that's not necessary. Okay, now we're gonna add error bars in the same way that we added error bars to the bar chart. So I'm gonna go to the series part under customize. So we're set up, go to customize, series. Don't apply to all series. We're gonna make a different error bar for each data point. So I'm gonna go to 72. Okay, I want these all these to be the same color. It's part of what allows me to be able to do different error bars is that I'm telling them that each of these dots is different, and that's why the dots are showing up different colors. But I just want to do a plain black dot here. And then I want to add an error bar, and I want it to be a constant number. And if we look back in our data for 72, the standard deviation of those data were 1.8. So I'm going to type in 1.8 here. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to do it for each point. You can see how if we had lots of points, this would be completely a nightmare. But this is really the best way I can think of doing it. I'm going to make this black. I'm going to error bars. The error bar is going to be a constant value, and that value is going to be 4.4. You can see over here, my standard deviation here was 4.4. Finally, let's go to our last point. That's 80. Let's make that one black. And my error bars will be a constant representing this is 3. Okay, so let's take a look at it now. What happened here? Error bars, constant is 3. Have we arrived? No, not 3%, a constant of 3. Okay, so now we have a graph of all 3 values, and not only am I showing error bars and the points, but also you see the spacing, unlike in a bar chart where all the bars are equally spaced apart because my temperatures aren't equally spaced apart. The dots aren't either. And so we can get kind of an idea for a relationship between IV and DV that could be maybe a linear relationship. Other stuff I could do here, I would want to obviously label my axes. I would love to get rid of these grid lines. The only way that I've been able to figure out how to get rid of these grid lines is to make them white, which is not ideal. But that's generally how you'd set up a chart, a scatter plot. Just make sure that you get your axes labeled. So this would be, say, temperature on the bottom here, and this would say Stroop effect in seconds. This would say temperature in Fahrenheit, degrees Fahrenheit. And that would be a good graph. And then I just have to make a text box that has the figure number, figure 1, the title, which would be the effective temperature on the Stroop effect, and then a little brief explanation of what's going on here, and then letting the reader know that these error bars represent exactly 1 standard deviation. And so that would be how you'd format that.